I'm Leona, 58 years old, and 1 week ago I had hip replacement surgery. The pain was excruciating, but what hurt more was hearing my daughter and son-in-law scream at me when I asked for help to the bathroom. "We're not your nurses," they shouted after promising to care for me. I never thought the people I gave everything to would abandon me when I needed them most. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button as I share how I responded when they left me helpless on the floor. Before my surgery, life was peaceful. After losing my husband Richard to a sudden heart attack 5 years ago, I'd settled into a comfortable routine in our family home. We'd been married for 30 years, and while the grief never fully disappeared, I'd learned to live with it. Richard had been smart with our finances, and between his life insurance, our savings, and my teacher's pension, I was financially secure. My daughter Melissa is 32, my only child. She and her husband Jake, 34, lived about 20 minutes away from me in a suburban neighborhood. Before all this happened, I thought we had a good relationship. We'd have Sunday dinners together twice a month, call each other regularly, and celebrate holidays as a family. I'd always been generous with Melissa and Jake. When they were struggling to put together a down payment for their first house. 4 years ago, I contributed $60,000. I never asked for it back. It was a gift, mother to daughter. When Jake's car broke down beyond repair last year, I helped them purchase a new one with a $15,000 check. Just 6 months ago, Melissa mentioned they were drowning in student loan debt, so I transferred $30,000 to help ease that burden. I didn't mind helping. What was the point of having money if not to make my daughter's life easier? Richard and I had always agreed that whatever we had would eventually go to Melissa anyway. I just wanted to see her happy and thriving during my lifetime, rather than waiting until I was gone. The hip problems started about a year ago. Just minor discomfort at first, then gradually worsening until every step became painful. My doctor recommended physical therapy, which I tried diligently for months, but the deterioration continued. An X-ray confirmed severe osteoarthritis, and my orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Bennett, recommended a total hip replacement. "You'll need someone to help you for about 6 to 8 weeks after surgery," Dr. Bennett explained during the consultation. "The first 2 weeks are the most challenging. You won't be able to drive, and you'll need assistance with many daily activities." I nodded already, considering my options. "I could hire a home health aide," I suggested. Before I could elaborate, Melissa, who had accompanied me to the appointment, jumped in. "Mom, you'll stay with us, of course. We have that spare bedroom on the first floor, so you won't have to worry about stairs." "That's very sweet, honey, but I don't want to impose," I said. Jake, who had been quietly scrolling through his phone, looked up. "It's no imposition, Leona. We're family. That's what family does." Looking back, I should have noticed how he barely made eye contact when he said this, or how his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Really, I can hire someone," I insisted. "I have the means." "Mom, that's ridiculous," Melissa said firmly. "Why would you pay a stranger when you have us?" "We want to help. Right, Jake?" "Absolutely," Jake replied, though his enthusiasm seemed forced. "We insist." Over the next few weeks, as the surgery date approached, they seemed genuinely excited to help. Melissa called frequently to discuss preparations for my stay. Jake even came over one weekend to take measurements of my walker to ensure it would fit through their hallways and doorways. There were small signs I ignored, like when Jake muttered under his breath about their vacation plans while helping measure doorways, or when Melissa mentioned they'd need to adjust their lifestyle temporarily. But I dismissed these moments, choosing to believe in their genuine desire to help. The night before my surgery, Melissa called to reassure me. "Mom, everything's ready at our place. We've cleared out the guest room, bought extra pillows for elevation, and stocked up on all your favorite snacks. Don't worry about anything except getting better." I went to bed feeling blessed and grateful. Despite losing Richard, I still had family who cared. I had my daughter. I had financial security. I was lucky, I thought. How wrong I was. The day of surgery arrived with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Melissa took the day off work to drive me to the hospital, holding my hand as the nurses prepared me for the procedure. "You'll be just fine, Mum," she said, squeezing my hand. "I'll be right here when you wake up." The last thing I remember before the anesthesia took effect was the surgical team moving around me and then darkness. I woke up hours later in the recovery room, groggy and disoriented. True to her word, Melissa was there smiling down at me. "Surgery went perfectly," she said. "Dr. Bennett already came by to tell me everything went according to plan." The next 24 hours passed in a haze of pain medication, vital sign checks, and brief shuffling walks with a physical therapist and a walker. By the second day, I was deemed ready for discharge. Jake came to pick us up, helping the nurse get me into his SUV while Melissa collected my discharge papers and prescriptions. "We've got everything set up for you," Jake said as he drove. His tone was cheerful, but I noticed his knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel. "Melissa took time off work for the rest of the week to help you settle in." Their house was a modest 2-story colonial in a nice neighborhood. As promised, they had converted their ground-floor guest room for my use, placing my walker beside the bed and arranging pillows for elevation. The first 3 days were relatively smooth. Melissa helped me with medication, brought meals to my room, and assisted me to the bathroom. Jake would help me to the living room sofa in the morning and back to bed in the evening. They seemed tired, but accommodating. By the 4th day, I started noticing changes. Jake would sigh heavily when I needed help moving from the bed to my walker. Melissa began checking her watch more frequently when I asked for assistance. Small irritations seemed to bubble beneath the surface of their helpfulness. "Jake, could you help me to the bathroom?" I asked one evening when my pain was particularly intense. "Just a minute," he called from the living room where he was watching a football game. 5 minutes passed, then 10. "Jake," I called again, my bladder painfully full. He appeared in the doorway, his expression tight. "Sorry it was a crucial play. Let's get you up." As he helped me stand, I winced in pain. His grip on my arm loosened slightly, as if my discomfort annoyed him. "Maybe we should look into getting a bedside commode," I suggested. "It might be easier than these frequent bathroom trips." "We're managing fine," he said curtly. "Besides, it's only for a few weeks, right?" That same day, I overheard Melissa on the phone in the kitchen. "No, I can't make it. I know I promised, but Mom needs—" "Yes, it's frustrating, but what am I supposed to do?" Later, when she brought my evening medication, her smile seemed forced. "Is everything okay, honey?" I asked. "Fine, Mom, just tired. Work has been sending emails even though I'm technically off." She handed me the pills and a glass of water. "Do you need anything else right now?" I was hoping to take a shower and get to bed early. "No, I'm fine. Thank you for everything you're doing." She nodded and left quickly, without the usual kiss on my forehead. By the 5th day, the tension was palpable. Jake had returned to work, leaving Melissa to handle most of my care. When he returned in the evenings, their whispered conversations in the kitchen grew more frequent. I caught snippets. "Longer than we thought. Can't keep this up. Your mother." I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. The pain from surgery was still significant, and my mobility remained severely limited. Each trip to the bathroom was an ordeal. Each shower a major production requiring significant assistance. "Melissa," I ventured during lunch on the 6th day, "maybe we should consider hiring some help, just for a few hours each day to give you a break." She looked up from her phone, where she'd been scrolling, instead of engaging in conversation. "Mom, we've been through this. We don't need to waste money on a nurse. We can handle it." "It wouldn't be a waste. I can easily afford it, and it would take some pressure off you both." "We're fine," she insisted, her tone sharpening. "Jake and I agreed to this. We're not going back on our word." That evening, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. I had to reschedule 3 client meetings this week. Jake's voice was low but intense. "My boss is getting annoyed." "What do you want me to do?" Melissa hissed back. "She's my mother. We promised we'd take care of her." "For how long, though?" "The doctor said 6 to 8 weeks. That's insane. We can't put our lives on hold for 2 months." "Lower your voice. She'll hear you." "I don't care if she hears me. This was your idea, not mine." Their words stung, but more painful was the realization that their earlier insistence on caring for me hadn't been as genuine as I'd believed. The breaking point came on the morning of the 7th day. I woke up needing to use the bathroom urgently. I called out for help, but no one answered. I called again, louder. Nothing. Desperate, I decided to try making it to the bathroom myself. I managed to get to my walker and shuffle painfully toward the bathroom door just a few feet away. Halfway there, my foot caught on the walker's leg, and I lost my balance. I fell, landing hard on my operated hip. The pain was excruciating, and I cried out in agony. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Melissa and Jake appeared in the doorway, both looking disheveled from sleep. "Mom, what happened?" Melissa asked, rushing to my side. "I called for help," I gasped through the pain. "No one came." Jake ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "We were asleep, Leona. It's 6 in the morning. I needed the bathroom," I explained, tears streaming down my face from both pain and humiliation. As they helped me up, Jake muttered under his breath, "This is ridiculous." "What did you say?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Nothing," he snapped. "Let's just get you back to bed." They helped me to the bathroom first, then back to bed, their movements rough and impatient. Neither asked if I was okay or if I needed pain medication for the fall. As soon as I was settled, they left the room without another word. I lay there, my hip throbbing, feeling more alone than I had since Richard died. The pain in my heart eclipsed the pain in my body. I had given them everything, and this was what I received in return. The final breaking point came that evening, exactly 1 week after my surgery. The day had been tense with minimal interaction between us. My hip ached from the morning's fall, and I was due for pain medication around 8 o'clock. Jake and Melissa were in the living room, watching a reality TV show, the volume turned up high. I could hear them laughing and commenting on the contestants. I waited until a commercial break to call out, "Melissa, could I have my pain medication, please? And I need to use the bathroom." No response came. I called again, louder, "Melissa, Jake, can someone help me, please?" The TV volume lowered slightly, but no one came. I heard muttering from the living room, but couldn't make out the words. I waited 5 minutes, then called again. My voice strained with pain and urgency. "Please, I really need help right now." I heard a loud sigh followed by heavy footsteps. Jake appeared in my doorway, his face flushed with anger. Melissa stood behind him, arms crossed defensively across her chest. "What is it now?" Jake demanded. I was taken aback by his tone. "I need my medication and help to the bathroom." "For God's sake, Leona," Jake exploded. "We're not your nurses. You're driving us crazy with these constant demands." The shock of his outburst left me momentarily speechless. Melissa stepped forward, her expression a mix of frustration and embarrassment. "Mom, you need to try harder to do things yourself," she said, her voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. "The physical therapist said you should be practicing more independence by now." "I fell this morning trying to do that," I reminded her, my voice small. "Because you were impatient," Jake interjected. "You couldn't wait 5 minutes for us to wake up naturally. It's always urgent with you, isn't it?" "Jake, please." I began, tears welling in my eyes. "No, I'm done pretending," he continued, his voice rising. Do you know we had a trip planned to Cabo next week, paid in full, non-refundable, but we had to cancel because of this arrangement? Melissa put a hand on his arm, but it wasn't to stop him. It seemed more like solidarity. "Mom, we love you," she said, though her tone conveyed anything but love. "But you're taking advantage. You could afford professional care, but instead you're disrupting our lives completely." "Taking advantage," I repeated incredulously. "After everything I've done for you both, the house down payment, Jake's car, your student loans." "Oh, here we go." Jake rolled his eyes dramatically. "The money. It always comes back to that, doesn't it? You hold those gifts over our heads like we're indentured servants." "I never asked for anything in return," I protested. "Except now," Melissa said coldly. "Now you expect 24-hour care without any regard for our lives or careers." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't recognize the person standing before me. This wasn't the child I'd raised, the young woman who'd held my hand at Richard's funeral and promised we'd always have each other. Jake wasn't finished. "You know what your problem is, Leona. You're selfish. You've always been selfish. You throw money around like it makes you a good mother, but when it comes to actual inconvenience, you expect everyone to drop everything for you." Each word felt like a physical blow. I'd spent my entire life putting Melissa first, sacrificing, saving, supporting. And now I was selfish for needing help after major surgery. "We're going back to watch our show," Jake concluded. "Your pills are on the nightstand. Use your walker to get to the bathroom. The doctor said you need to start doing more yourself anyway." They turned to leave Melissa, not even looking back at me. "Melissa!" I called, my voice breaking. "Is this how you really feel?" She paused in the doorway, her back to me. For a moment I thought she might turn around, might show some sign of the daughter I knew. But she simply said, "I'm tired, Mum. We're both tired." Then they walked away, leaving me alone with my pain, both physical and emotional. As I heard the volume of the TV increase again, something broke inside me. But in that breaking, a new resolve formed. Richard had always told me, "Leona, never let anyone disrespect you, not even family." It was time I remembered that advice. Painfully, I reached for my cell phone on the nightstand. With tears streaming down my face, but determination in my heart, I knew exactly what I needed to do. That night was the longest of my life. I lay awake replaying their words over and over in my mind, each repetition cutting deeper than the last. The physical pain in my hip was constant, but it paled in comparison to the ache in my heart. As dawn broke, I watched light slowly fill the room, thinking about Richard and what he would advise me to do. He had always been my rock, the voice of reason when emotions clouded my judgment. "Stand up for yourself, Lee," he would say. "No one else will if you don't." A memory surfaced from the early years of our marriage. We had been struggling financially, and my parents had offered to help with a down payment on our first home. Richard had refused. "We'll make it on our own terms," he'd insisted. "Love with strings attached isn't really love at all." I had thought he was being stubborn at the time, but now I understood. He had been protecting our dignity, our independence. I had failed to do the same with Melissa and Jake, and we were all suffering for it. By 7:30 in the morning, I heard them moving around upstairs, preparing for work. The door to my room remained closed. No one came to check on me, to ask if I needed help with morning routines or medication. The message was clear, I was on my own. Once I was certain they had both left for work, the front door slamming, 2 car engines starting and fading into the distance, I pulled out my cell phone and made the first of 2 critical calls. "Good morning, this is First National Bank. How may I help you today?" "This is Leona Williams," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "I need to speak with Mr. Peterson in account management, please. It's regarding my accounts." After verifying my identity, I was connected to Thomas Peterson, who had handled my banking for years. "Leona, good to hear from you. What can I do for you today? I need to make some immediate changes to my accounts, I explained. First, I want to freeze the joint account I share with my daughter Melissa. No withdrawals should be permitted until further notice. I can certainly help with that, he said, his tone professional. May I ask if there's a problem? Just a precaution, I replied, not wanting to air family grievances. Second, I need to revoke Melissa's access to my savings account and safe deposit box. She currently has power of attorney for banking purposes, but I want that terminated immediately. Mr. Peterson walked me through the necessary steps, explaining that some changes would require in-person signatures eventually, but he could place temporary holds and restrictions immediately. Is there anything else I can help you with? Yes, I said, thinking quickly. I'll need a cashier's check prepared for $50,000 from my personal savings. I'll arrange for someone to pick it up with proper authorization later today. After completing the banking business, I made my second call to Martin Goldstein, the attorney who had handled Richard's estate and our financial affairs for over 20 years. Leona, he greeted me warmly. It's been a while. How are you doing? Not well, Martin, I admitted, and briefly explained my situation, the surgery, Melissa and Jake's behavior, and my current predicament. That's unacceptable, he said, his voice hardening. You need immediate assistance. I can be at their house in 2 hours. Will they be home? No, they're both at work until evening. Good. I'll bring my assistant and a notary. We'll document your living conditions and take care of the paperwork. I'll also contact a home healthcare agency I trust to arrange proper care. Thank you, Martin. There's one more thing, I added. Jake and Melissa owe me approximately $105,000, gifts I've given them over the years that I now want reclassified as loans. I want formal repayment terms drawn up due within 48 hours. There was a pause on the line. Are you certain about this, Leona? That's a significant change in your relationship with them. They changed it first, Martin, I said firmly. I'm just acknowledging what already happened. I understand. I'll prepare the documents. Is there anything else? Yes. I need to amend my will immediately. Martin arrived precisely when promised, accompanied by his assistant and a notary public. He was shocked at my condition, still in the previous day's clothes medication overdue, clearly dehydrated. This is elder abuse, he stated flatly, taking photographs to document the situation, while his assistant helped me clean up and change. We spent the next 3 hours handling legal matters. First, Martin helped me execute a power of attorney, assigning him temporary authority to manage my affairs while I recovered. Next, we drafted a formal loan agreement, consolidating all the money I had given Melissa and Jake, with a 48-hour demand notice for full repayment. If they couldn't pay immediately, the document included a payment plan with interest and collateral requirements, including a lien on their home. Most significantly, we amended my will. Previously, Melissa had been my sole beneficiary. Now, I established that 50% of my estate would go to a scholarship fund for underprivileged children, 25% to a medical research foundation for heart disease in Richard's memory, and only 25% to Melissa, with stipulations that would further reduce her portion if she contested the will. The Home Health Agency will send someone this afternoon, Martin informed me as they prepared to leave. They'll help you relocate to a short-term rehabilitation facility I've arranged. All expenses will be covered by your insurance, and what's not covered, I'll advance from your accounts. What about Melissa and Jake? They'll be home around 6. Martin's expression hardened. I'll personally return at 5:30 to be here when they arrive. They need to understand the seriousness of their actions. After they left, I felt simultaneously drained and empowered. For the first time in days, I had taken control of my situation, instead of being at the mercy of others. I dozed off briefly, waking to the doorbell around 2 o'clock. A kind-faced woman in scrubs introduced herself as Nancy from Comprehensive Home Health Services. She efficiently helped me bathe change into fresh clothes and take my overdue medications. She checked my surgical site, took my vitals, and ensured I was comfortable. "We'll be transferring you to Lakeview Recovery Center this evening," she explained while helping me pack essential belongings. "It's a beautiful facility with excellent rehabilitation services. You'll have round-the-clock professional care until you're ready to return home." I nodded gratefully, realizing this was what I should have arranged from the beginning instead of burdening Melissa and Jake, or rather instead of giving them the opportunity to reveal their true characters. As 5:30 approached, I heard Martin's car pull into the driveway. The confrontation I had been both dreading and anticipating was about to begin. Jake arrived home first, walking through the front door at 5:45. I heard him call out, "Melissa, you home," before noticing Martin sitting in the living room. "Who are you?" Jake demanded. "What are you doing in my house?" Martin stood, extending his business card. "Martin Goldstein, attorney at law. I represent Leona Williams, and you must be Jake, the son-in-law, who abandoned his post-surgical mother-in-law without proper care." Jake's face flushed. "What? That's ridiculous. We've been taking care of her." "That's not what the documented evidence suggests," Martin replied calmly. "Ms. Williams has been without assistance since you and your wife left this morning. No medication, no meals, no bathroom assistance." As they argued, I sat in my room with Nancy beside me listening. Part of me wanted to intervene to soften the blow, but a stronger part knew this confrontation was necessary. The front door opened again, and Melissa's voice called out, "Jake! Why is there a medical transport van in our driveway?" Jake's response was immediate. "Your mother's lawyer is here. Something about neglect and loans." I heard Melissa rush into the living room, her voice pitched high with panic. "Lawyer, what's going on?" Martin's voice remained steady. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Martin Goldstein, your mother's attorney. She has retained me to address several urgent matters, including her immediate removal from your home to a professional care facility." "What, Mom's leaving?" "That's crazy. We're taking good care of her." "Are you?" Martin challenged. "When was the last time you helped her to the bathroom?" "Administered her medication, provided a meal." The silence that followed was telling. "Mom!" Melissa called out. "Mom, what's happening?" That was my cue. With Nancy's help, I walked slowly into the living room using my walker. Melissa's eyes widened at the sight of me dressed and packed, a professional caregiver at my side. "Mom, what is this?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "I'm leaving Melissa," I said simply. "I've arranged for proper care elsewhere." Jake stepped forward, his face a mask of confusion and anger. "Because we asked you to try to be more independent. This is a massive overreaction, Leona," Martin intervened. "Mr. Hayes, I suggest you choose your words carefully. What you and your wife did constitutes elder neglect at minimum. There could be criminal implications." That silenced him temporarily, but Melissa wasn't deterred. She approached me, tears forming in her eyes. "Mom, please. If you were unhappy with something, you should have said so. We can fix this." "You made yourselves very clear last night," I replied, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. "You're not my nurses. You're tired of helping me. You resent having to cancel your vacation." Message received. "We were just frustrated," she protested. "Everyone says things they don't mean when they're tired. Those weren't tired words, Melissa. They were revealing ones." Martin cleared his throat and handed Jake an envelope. "This is a formal notice regarding the loans Ms. Williams has extended to you and your wife over the past 4 years, totaling $105,000. Payment in full is due within 48 hours. Jake tore open the envelope, his face draining of color as he scanned the document. Loans. "These were gifts. You never said anything about repayment." "Circumstances change," I said quietly. "We don't have this kind of money," Melissa cried. "You know that, Mom, there are payment plan options detailed in the agreement," Martin explained. However, they require collateral, specifically a lien on your home and vehicles. Jake's shock transformed into rage. This is extortion. You can't just decide gifts were loans after the fact. Actually, without written gift documentation, she absolutely can, Martin countered. And given the circumstances of her treatment in your home, a court would likely be sympathetic to her position. Melissa turned to me, desperation in her eyes. Mom, you can't do this. We'll lose everything. I've lost something too, I replied, my illusions about our relationship. The medical transport team arrived at that moment, entering with a wheelchair. Nancy introduced them and explained they were here to take me to Lakeview Recovery Center. As they helped transfer me to the wheelchair, reality seemed to finally dawn on Jake and Melissa. This wasn't a bluff or a negotiation tactic. I was leaving, and their financial security was in serious jeopardy. Mom, please, Melissa begged, grabbing my hand. We love you. We were just overwhelmed. Everyone gets overwhelmed sometimes. I looked into her eyes, searching for the daughter I thought I knew. Love doesn't abandon someone in pain, Melissa. Love doesn't shout, "We're not your nurses," when someone asks for help to the bathroom. The transport team began wheeling me toward the door. Martin followed with my suitcase, while Nancy carried my personal items. What about our relationship? Melissa called after me, tears now streaming down her face. I paused at the threshold. That's up to you to think about. I'll be focusing on healing, in all the ways I need to heal. As the transport team loaded me into the van, I heard Jake and Melissa arguing inside the house. Jake's voice carried through the open door. How are we supposed to come up with $100,000 in 2 days? This is insane. Melissa rushed out to the driveway as the van doors closed. Mom, you can't leave like this. We need to talk. But the van was already pulling away. Through the rear window, I watched my daughter grow smaller in the distance, her arms wrapped around herself. Jake, standing in the doorway, looking shell-shocked. I felt a profound sadness, but also surprisingly a sense of peace. For the first time in years, I had stood up for my own worth. As the van turned the corner, Melissa disappeared from view. And with her, the weight of expectations and disappointment I had carried for too long. My first week at Lakeview Recovery Center passed in a blur of medical assessments, physical therapy sessions, and much-needed rest. The facility was indeed beautiful, situated on landscaped grounds with views of a small lake. My private room was spacious and comfortable, with large windows that let in abundant natural light. The contrast between my care here and at Melissa and Jake's house was stark. The staff checked on me regularly, administered medications on schedule, and helped me with personal care needs without complaint or judgment. The physical therapists were encouraging but firm, pushing me to make progress while respecting my limitations. Melissa called multiple times daily that first week. I instructed the staff to tell her I wasn't ready to speak with her yet. She sent flowers cards and even a fruit basket with an apologetic note. I read the note, but wasn't prepared to respond. I needed time to process what had happened and determine what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted with my daughter going forward. Jake, unsurprisingly, made no attempt to contact me directly. According to Martin, he had been furious when meeting to discuss the loan repayment terms, calling me manipulative and vindictive. They had ultimately agreed to a 5-year payment plan with monthly installments and the required collateral. Melissa had signed the papers in tears. By the second week, I had settled into a routine. Morning, physical therapy. Lunch, rest. Afternoon, occupational therapy. Dinner and evenings spent reading or watching television. I began to make friends with other residents, particularly a woman named Grace, who was recovering from a stroke. My son dropped me off here and has visited exactly once in 3 weeks, Grace confided during our afternoon coffee in the community room. He was very concerned about when I'd be able to resume babysitting his children for free. Her candor made me laugh for the first time since surgery. My daughter and son-in-law told me they weren't my nurses when I asked for help to the bathroom. Grace raised her eyebrows. And yet they're surprised when we stop being their banks. We became fast friends, two women navigating the complicated terrain of family obligations and self-respect in our later years. Grace had a wicked sense of humor and a wisdom born from experience that helped me gain perspective on my situation. "You know," she said one day, as we watched ducks on the lake from the facility's sunroom, "we raise our children to be independent, but we never quite prepare for how complete that independence might become." Sometimes I think the hardest part of parenting isn't the sleepless nights when they're babies, but the sleepless nights when they're adults, and you realize you can't fix their problems anymore, or worse, when they stop caring about yours. Her words resonated deeply. I had always seen myself primarily as Melissa's mother, making her needs and happiness my priority. I had never really considered what it meant to be Leona, a woman with my own needs and dignity. By the third week, my physical recovery was progressing well. I could walk short distances with just a cane, and the surgical pain had diminished significantly. My emotional healing was taking longer, but I was working through it with the help of a counselor provided by the facility. Dr. Winters. The counselor helped me recognize patterns in my relationship with Melissa that had contributed to our current situation. "You've described a relationship where you give, and she takes," she observed during one session. "Have you ever set boundaries with Melissa before?" I had to admit I hadn't. I wanted to be there for her, to make her life easier than mine had been. "That's a beautiful intention," Dr. Winters acknowledged. "But sometimes the best gift we can give our children is the opportunity to develop resilience and respect through appropriate boundaries." As I approached the 1-month mark at Lakeview, I finally felt ready to face Melissa. I called her on a Tuesday afternoon, and she answered immediately, as if she'd been waiting by the phone. "Mom." Her voice was tentative, hopeful. "Hello, Melissa," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I think it's time we talked. Would you be willing to meet me at the Coffee Corner Cafe near Lakeview this Saturday at 11? "Of course, absolutely. Should I bring Jake or—" "No," I interrupted firmly. "Just you." The silence on the line spoke volumes. "Okay," she finally agreed. "Just me." Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures. I arranged for a facility driver to take me to the cafe, arriving a few minutes early to secure a quiet table in the corner. I felt nervous, but resolute, my hands steady as I arranged my cane against the wall. Melissa arrived precisely at 11, scanning the room anxiously before spotting me. She looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes. As she approached, I noticed she carried a small gift bag. "Mom," she said, her voice catching. "You look good. How are you feeling?" "Better," I replied honestly. "Please sit down." She slid into the chair opposite me, placing the gift bag on the table between us. "I brought you something. It's not much, just—" "Melissa," I interrupted gently. "Let's talk first. Gifts won't fix this." Her face fell, but she nodded, withdrawing her hand from the bag. I took a deep breath. "I want you to understand why I left, and why I made the decisions I did." "I know we messed up," she jumped in. "We were tired and stressed and said terrible things, but Mom, we do love you. We always have." Love isn't just a feeling, Melissa. It's actions. It's respect. When I needed you most, you and Jake showed me exactly where I stood in your priorities. Not just with your words that night, but with your actions in the days leading up to it. Tears filled her eyes. "We made a mistake. A horrible mistake. But does one mistake erase everything good between us? Does it cancel 20 years of me being your daughter?" No, I conceded. It doesn't erase the past, but it does change the future. I can't trust you the way I once did. I won't be vulnerable with you the way I once was. So what does that mean for us? She asked, her voice small. Are you cutting me out of your life? I shook my head. No, but our relationship needs to change. I won't be your safety net anymore, Melissa. I won't be your backup plan or your emergency fund. I'll be your mother who loves you, but who also respects herself enough to expect better treatment than what I received. She wiped away tears with the back of her hand. And Jake, he feels terrible too, Mom. Jake hasn't reached out once, I pointed out. Not a call, not a text, not a card. His actions speak clearly enough. He's embarrassed and angry about the loans, but mostly embarrassed. He should be, but embarrassment without change isn't remorse, it's just discomfort at being caught. We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering painful ground but necessary terrain. Melissa admitted they had agreed to care for me, partly out of financial obligation, feeling they owed me after all I had given them. I acknowledged my role in creating a dynamic where money and love became entangled in unhealthy ways. I'm moving back to my house next week, I told her as our conversation wound down. The doctors say I'm ready for independent living, though I'll have in-home physical therapy for another month or so. Can I visit you? She asked hesitantly. Yes, I said after a moment's consideration. But on my terms, Sunday afternoons, after I've had time to rest from therapy, and just you for now. Jake and I will need more time. She nodded, accepting the boundary without argument, perhaps the first indication that something had truly changed between us. As we prepared to leave, she finally pushed the small gift bag toward me. Please, I'd still like you to have this. Inside was a silver frame containing a photo I hadn't seen in years. Melissa, at about 7 years old, sitting on my lap as I read her a story. We were both laughing, completely absorbed in each other and the moment. I found it when I was cleaning out some old boxes, she explained. It reminded me of who we used to be together, who we could be again, maybe. I traced the edge of the frame with my finger. Maybe, I agreed, one step at a time. 3 months after my surgery, I was back in my own home, moving around with just occasional use of a cane. The physical recovery had proceeded exactly as Dr. Bennett predicted. The emotional recovery continued to be a work in progress. Melissa visited every Sunday as agreed. Our conversations were sometimes awkward, sometimes tearful, occasionally punctuated by old tensions resurfacing. But gradually, a new pattern emerged between us, one with more honesty and clearer boundaries. She stopped asking for financial help, and I stopped offering it unsolicited. Jake remained distant, joining Melissa for a visit only once, clearly uncomfortable, and leaving early with a flimsy excuse. I wasn't particularly bothered by his absence. Some relationships are worth rebuilding, others are better left in the past. My friendship with Grace from Lakeview continued to flourish. We met weekly for lunch, 2 survivors sharing wisdom and laughter. Her son eventually stopped visiting altogether, but she had found peace with that reality. Not everyone gets a second act with their children, she told me over soup and salad one afternoon. You're fortunate that Melissa is trying. I know, I acknowledged, but it's not the same as before. It shouldn't be, Grace said firmly. Before wasn't working. Before led you to a bedroom where you were left alone in pain. Different is good, Leona. Different means growth. She was right, of course. The relationship Melissa and I were slowly rebuilding wasn't the same as the one we'd had before my surgery. It was more cautious, more measured, but in some ways more authentic. We were learning to see each other as we truly were, not as we wished the other to be. One unexpected benefit of my experience was a newfound sense of purpose. Working with Martin, I established the Richard Williams Educational Foundation, using a portion of my savings to help low-income students pursue higher education without the burden of crushing debt. The foundation would eventually receive half my estate, ensuring Richard's legacy would live on in tangible, meaningful ways. As I sit here now 6 months after that terrible night, when my daughter and son-in-law shouted that they weren't my nurses, I reflect on the journey since. The pain, both physical and emotional, has largely subsided. In its place is a clarity I hadn't expected to find at this stage of life. I learned that love without respect isn't really love at all. I learned that generosity motivated by guilt or obligation becomes a burden to both giver and receiver. Most importantly, I learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. Sometimes the strongest love is the one that knows when to say no, and the deepest healing begins when you finally put yourself first. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family members who took you for granted? What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and self-discovery. Remember, it's never too late to set boundaries and reclaim your dignity. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own journey.